Hello everyone, my name is Ravi Sagar. I am a principal consultant and founder of Sparxsys. Sparxsys is an Atlassian consultancy company based in London and Delhi. We provide wide range of services around Atlassian tools, and in this session I will be sharing my experiences of running a digital transformation program using Atlassian tools. Now, these days, digital transformation is in trend. It is a buzzword, and if you do a quick Google search online, you will find plenty of examples, plenty of articles, and organizations talking about how they did digital transformation over the past few years. And I'm showing you here this Google trend chart showing you this increase, like a massive increase in the search queries. So yes, people are interested in understanding what exactly is digital transformation. And if you notice in the last 10 years, there is a significant increase in this particular topic. So today I will first share what exactly is a digital transformation, what exactly is this term all about. Now, digital transformation is nothing but transforming your business, but using technology, because technology is everywhere, and these days people want to replace their manual processes with modern tools. It could be not just replacing their processes with tools or software tools, but it can also be replacing their old tools. So maybe if you're using a technology that has been there in your organization for 20 years and it might be still working, but you know that by replacing it with a new one, with a new technology, you can definitely expect some improvement or significant improvement in your processes, and that is what digital transformation is all about. Now, before I start, I want to give you some examples. I want to share these simple examples that will give you an idea about some digital transformations that happened in the companies where I have worked. And a simple example could be moving your infrastructure to cloud. Now, you may be using your own tools, your softwares, or maybe it is your product, your services running on your own on-prem servers. It could be your own data center, or maybe you have hired servers from a data center, but it is basically on-prem. Now, these days, we know that we have major players in the market, especially talking about cloud. And we all know about Amazon Web Services, we all know about Google, we all know about other players that are also entering, like talking about cloud in general. And it makes sense if you basically move your infrastructure to these cloud-based services. And it is not really simple. You need to plan well in advance. You need to basically make sure that everything works after you move to cloud. So this is a typical example of a multi-year program, like a digital transformation program. Another simple example could be implementing or introducing, let us say, a new software in your organization. For example, if your organization is heavily relying on sales, customer sales, and you have been doing these sales maybe without a tool, or maybe you are using something like Excel sheets, then using a proper CRM based software can be beneficial. We all know about Salesforce, we all know about similar popular CRM based softwares in the industry, and it may not be multi-year program, but definitely you need to spend and plan for a few months. So it can take few months. And it could be not just a CRM software. This is of course just one example, but you can also replace or implement a new software for accounting, right? Because these days there are a lot of online accounting softwares that can actually help you manage your work, your payouts, your employee salaries for your entire organization, and you don't have to do anything but of course use the software. But in the beginning, you have to make sure that you hire consultants to roll out this software in your organization. A similar example could be adopting new tools to track your supply chain management. And at the same time, these days we all know and we have been using for many years different shopping websites, but there are still a lot of organizations that still have or companies, they still have their physical presence. They have their own shops, and they have not really adopted this concept of online shopping or mobile apps. But now companies are thinking that, especially after the lockdown, because there was a massive 2-year lockdown in most countries, some kind of lockdown in most countries where no one was basically going out. And then these organizations, these companies, big companies, they realized that yes, we need to have a shopping website, we need to have a mobile app so that people can simply use their mobile app to shop. But again, this is of course not really a simple thing to implement. I mean, creating a shopping site or a mobile app can happen in few months, but if you're trying to make sure that you have one more presence in a form of this shopping website, then definitely it involves a lot of changes in your organization, and definitely supply chain management is also part of it. Now, these are of course some examples of digital transformation, but if you implement these things, if you, let us say, roll out a new software, or you replace your manual process with tools, then you're trying to basically improve the efficiency or productivity in general. So if you're wondering why we need to have these digital transformations, then the simple answer is that you want to basically make sure that you survive in the industry, because our industry is now very competitive, and you want to make sure that you're able to utilize your resources, you are more productive, you are making more money, and to sustain your business, you have to basically adopt these new processes, new technologies, and this is something that has to be done if you have to be competitive and at the same time survive in the industry these days. Because in the past few years, we have seen some big companies failing because they didn't take the right action at the right time. And it is all about transforming. So when we talk about digital transformation is not just about introducing new tools, but it is more about transforming the business. So the term transformation is not just limited to digital part of it. It is not just the technology, but technology is definitely important, because technology is the driver to enable these changes. And of course, when we talk about technology today, of course, we want to focus on Atlassian tools. And when we talk about Atlassian tools like Jira or Confluence or various apps, you have to basically make sure that these tools are used in the right way, so that you don't really mess up, and at the same time you're able to get the most out of these tools, so that ultimately your transformation program or whatever you're trying to implement is a success. Now, definitely there are challenges. When we talk about these challenges, just to give you some examples, of course, when we talk about a tool like Jira, we need to ensure that Jira is configured in a way so that it helps you with the plan. Now, when we talk about planning is all about what needs to be done, number one, and by when you need to do it and who will do it. So it could be a simple plan, or it could be a bit more complicated plan, depending upon the size of your organization. But planning is definitely important, and Jira can do planning. I mean, Jira essentially is an issue tracker, but if you are using it correctly, and if you have defined those hierarchies in Jira, then definitely you can create a plan at different levels. I will talk about those hierarchies in a minute. Now, at the same time, because people use Jira to track their work, people use Jira to update whatever they are doing, but at the same time, you need to know who will be working on those activities. Now, if you are, let us say, rolling out a new software, or you are maybe moving your infrastructure from on-prem to cloud, you need to figure out and ensure that people are available. You have resources to do it. And this can only be done when you know and when you estimate the size of the work. And that will come from the planning. So these things are interrelated. At the same time, when you have a plan, when you know who is going to work on it, then you need to ensure that it is working fine, because you need to track it. So tracking or reporting in general is very important, because usually these transformation programs are multi-year programs, and you don't really want to wait for the very last minute or till the very end to ensure that the program is running fine. You have to basically have regular checks, and these regular checks, these statuses at regular intervals will give you and your stakeholders confidence in the overall program. Now, today, of course, we are talking about Jira, and I want to share some of my experiences where I configured Jira. Not only configured Jira, but I also ensured that Jira can be used effectively. And that is, of course, I want to focus on today in this particular session. And before I talk about the configurations in Jira, I want to give you some idea about different levels. Now, if you are familiar with, let us say, SAFe methodologies like Scaled Agile Framework, then this might seem a bit similar, but I will give you a simplified version of that. And I'm not really going to follow a specific methodology. I mean, you don't need to follow SAFe or similar methodologies. It can be just a matter of planning work in your projects in Jira. But at the same time, when we have to plan for multiple years, and we need some visibility for the next few months, you need to ensure that Jira is configured in a right way. Now, talking about the hierarchy, I'll probably first show you the hierarchy in Jira. So we all are familiar with the concept of stories, right? We all use stories in Jira. And when we talk about stories, I'm basically talking about, let us say, your Jira software-based projects, where you have this concept of a board, and within a board you can have stories, or you can have a task, or you can have a bug, or you can have test cases, and stories can also have further subtasks. Now, I want to also focus on the time span. Like usually if you talk about stories, you're trying to deliver a story or work on a story or plan those stories in a sprint. So that is fine. I mean, this is something that works really well for a small or medium-sized project. But stories can also be grouped, or stories are usually part of an epic. Now, epic is again a concept not a concept, but this is an issue type in Jira, which you will get when you create a project or when you have a Jira software instance. And epics will normally go on for few sprints. So usually you need maybe 2 or 3 sprints to deliver an epic. Now, good thing about Jira is that you can always introduce more levels, and these levels are nothing but different issue types. Now, how these issue types are linked to each other, this is something that we have to figure out, and that is what I will share today. Now, we can have 2 more levels. For example, if on top of epics, you also want to have some initiatives. Now, the time span of the initiatives could be, let us say, 1 to 2 months, and on the very top, you can have something like a high-level capability. So this is the hierarchy that we can create in Jira. And by the way, to create this hierarchy in Jira, you can of course use advanced roadmaps. That is one example. That is one feature. And good thing about advanced roadmaps is that it comes with the Jira Premium on cloud. But at the same time, if we talk about Jira Data Center, you do have advanced roadmap, so you can definitely use it. Now, the link between story and subtask is nothing but parent-child, but stories are linked to epics using epic link. Epics are linked to initiative, and initiatives are linked to capability using parent link. So this is something that can be managed using advanced roadmaps. Now, the example that I want to share today, or the use case that I want to share today, is basically based on the fact that when we plan something for the next few years, talking about a long running program, we are talking about these capabilities that can span across multiple quarters. But in our use case, in the use case that I'm talking about today, the idea was that we have to deliver something every 3 months. So this is the the driver. This is something that has to be done. So whenever you make a plan, whenever I was working on those hierarchies in Jira, we had to ensure that in the beginning, like somewhere here or here, when we are making a plan, we have to ensure that Jira should be able to tell us what all we can do and deliver in the next 3 months. So the plan was driven by these quarterly releases, and at the very start of the plan, like in the beginning of the cycle, we have to figure out what all initiatives we can deliver, what all epics and stories we can deliver. So this is the driver, but it can be the other way around. If you want, you can also do something like where you can figure out okay, by when we can deliver these things. So the release dates in Jira, the versions can also be based on the fact that if you want to ensure that you have a feature that can be delivered, so based on the resources, based on the amount of work that is needed to be done, you can actually deliver them as soon as you can. But if, let us say, you're running a multi-year program, then these regular intervals of releases will help. And this is like a deadline that, okay, by this date, we have to deliver these set of features. Now, if we talk about the plan, how this plan was made in Jira. Now, in the beginning, because we are talking about some issue types like capabilities, initiatives, epics, and of course stories and subtasks, the plan was made with some initial estimation. So in the beginning, we will focus on epics, and we'll try to group these epics into initiatives. And the idea was that the requirements, all the things that need to be done, like high-level requirements, were actually stored in Confluence. So in Confluence, of course, you can have a page where you can define your requirements, and then you will create the actual initiatives in your Jira projects. And by the way, it doesn't really matter if you have one project or multiple projects, because the good thing about advanced roadmaps is that it can actually have data coming from multiple projects. So that is totally fine. But to keep things simple, I always recommend my clients to have a minimum number of projects. If, let us say, everyone is doing similar work, then even just one project makes sense, to be honest. Now, in the beginning, to make this high-level initial plan, starting with the Confluence page, Jira issues were created, like usually the initiatives, and the capabilities were not really created too often, because capabilities were only few of them. If you're talking about, let us say, a 3-year program or maybe a 2-year program, then you will not really have more than 10 capabilities, just to give you an example. And capabilities will usually go beyond your quarterly releases. And advanced roadmap was actually used to set up this initial plan, because it is very easy to use. When you have this advanced roadmap plan view in front of you, you can easily create your issues, like, for example, epics, and then you can easily not only create, but you can also easily link your epics to initiatives and initiatives to capabilities. And not only that, you can also rank the items. So advanced roadmap is something that is wonderful for creating this initial plan very quickly. And good thing about an advanced roadmap is that whatever you're doing is within that particular plan. So you have to commit your changes. So that is also one good thing about this initial high-level plan that you can create, that you have the option to work on your own sandbox. So you have the concept of scenarios, and you can have multiple scenarios. And in the beginning, when you're doing the initial planning, you can actually work with your stakeholders. You can show them a couple of plans, and then you can agree on one plan, and then you can commit those changes back to your Jira project. And when you commit those changes back to the Jira project or Jira projects, then of course you will have all those issues created with those links. Now at the same time, structure was also used in some cases where there was a requirement of end-to-end traceability. Now advanced roadmap works fine for data within Jira, but structure can also show and display the Confluence pages. So let us say if you are looking at a bug and you want to know the original requirement, good thing about structure is that structure board will give you flexibility. And I will talk about structure in a bit more detail. But not only you can have your own customized view, your own board, but you can also see how bug is linked back to the requirement. So that is a wonderful thing about structure. Now, the second thing in the plan was to create this high-level plan with estimation, because this estimation, the initial estimation, was done not using the original estimate field, but it was done using a custom field in Jira. At the same time, EasyBI reports were used to roll up these estimates at all the levels. Basically, EasyBI is a wonderful app that can be used to create a report and pull up data from Jira. And you can actually use a rolled up report using some calculated measures. And this was done in the beginning. Now, prioritization can also be done using advanced roadmap, which I just mentioned, or you can also let your teams know that, okay, do your own prioritization. And prioritization in Jira is nothing but using the ranking feature. So just drag and drop. At the same time, if we talk about dependencies is very important, because you need to know how these issues are linked to each other, how these issues are going to block each other. So it is nothing but using issue links. And good thing about advanced roadmap is that you have this dependency view in advanced roadmap. Now, the outcome of this particular plan was nothing but the commitment of work for the next quarterly release. At the same time, when you have the initial high-level estimation done, then you can also ask the team to work on the stories, like create those stories under the epics if they have some idea about what needs to be done. And when you create those stories, and when you also assign those stories to sprints, usually sprints, the moment you create a sprint in Jira, you have a sprint date, like start date and end date. And even by doing this thing, like stories and then sprints in your Jira projects, you can actually view this information on a timeline. And you can actually use advanced roadmap, or you can also use EasyBI reports for doing that. And because I was talking about the rolled up view, if you're using, let us say, a custom field for storing this initial estimate, this initial high-level estimate will give you at all levels. Using EasyBI report, you can actually roll up these numbers and understand at either initiative level, or maybe the capability level, or maybe for a specific quarterly release, how many people you need for the next 3 months. And this number will give you an idea about, okay, for this particular program, for this release, I need maybe these many resources. So this is really important, and this is something that you can easily do with EasyBI. And let us talk about tracking the progress. Of course, tracking is also important because we need to ensure that we are on track. Again, for tracking, you can use either your advanced roadmap, but advanced roadmap is not really going to give you a customized view. It is great for building a plan, ranking, and also looking at the dependencies. And advanced roadmap, the moment you open your plan, it is always real time. But EasyBI can show you a similar view, but at the same time, you have the option to customize it further. And you can also use your own customized progress, because the definition of the progress is different for different teams. And advanced roadmaps, if you compare it with EasyBI has drilled down capabilities. So this is something that I personally quite like. At the same time, if you talk about rolling up your status, this is something that you can potentially do. And I have done this in the past using a script runner for Jira. So if you have script runner for Jira, you can always write a listener to roll up your either estimates or status. For example, if you resolve your stories, and the moment you resolve all the stories or all the tasks or all the tests, you have the option to roll up this status at the epic level and so on. But I found this approach works fine for simple setup. If you have a bit more complex setup, if you have too many people involved, then it can cause some performance issues, and it can also cause some confusion. And that is why I rely on the teams, and I rely on the stakeholders, especially scrum masters, project managers, to ensure that people are updating their issues. Now, again, talking about automations, I try to avoid automations and not avoid automations completely, but I try to avoid too much scripting, because you can do a lot of scripting using Scriptner for Jira. For example, if you want to create some scripted fields are great, because you can actually, the moment you open your issue, you have the data in front of you. And that is the great thing about scripted fields, because scripted fields will give you this calculation immediately in real time when the issue is accessed. And I used scripted fields for cases where I need to display the lead time or cycle time. And another good example where I used Scriptner quite a lot was basically to notify people, stakeholders, like sending those automated emails maybe every day or every week that, okay, these are the issues where you need to take some action. But EasyBI also has this capability of calculation. So you can also use EasyBI calculations to show the progress at different levels. I'm talking about the progress based on status of various stories. Now, structure can do a lot of things that advanced roadmaps and EasyBI can also do. But great thing about structure is that anyone can create a structure board, and you can create a top-down view. For example, starting with the capability, then you can show initiative, and then epic, and then stories. But you can also create a bottom-up view. For example, if you want to do some backlog grooming, and you want to have a view where you want to group items based on the assignee, like show me all the issues assigned to user number 1 and then user number 2. You can do that easily. And also, when you're looking at individual item, let us say you're looking at a bug or you're looking at a story, in the same view, you have the option to trace back the original requirement. So structure was definitely useful. Also, EasyBI report can be used to not only show a rolled up view of the estimates, but you can also do the planned versus actual kind of reporting. So when you have the initial estimates filled in during the initial planning, you can also use the original estimate field, and then when people log their work, their time, you can also track it, and everything can be displayed using this wonderful EasyBI report in just one view. And again, remember, these EasyBI reports are all dynamic, so you can always drill down to any level you want. And I heavily used EasyBI reports. You can create reports for everyone. If you want to look at your sprints, you can. If you want to look at your velocity charts, you can. So a lot of capabilities when we talk about reporting using EasyBI. And all of this is not honestly straightforward and easy to implement and manage. So it will only work when you have strong leadership and there is like a sponsor. So you have to lead by example. You have to make sure that teams, you have to understand how teams work. You have to talk to everyone at different levels. At the same time, avoid too many configurations and too many restrictions in Jira. Keep it a bit open. At the same time, education is very important. I try to talk to people at different levels. I talk to team members, developers. I also talk to stakeholders, scrum masters, trying to understand their pain points and how Jira can be used effectively. And at the same time, most important thing is the ownership. For example, if I'm a developer, I need to ensure that my stories are resolved. I need to ensure that my tasks are updated in Jira. So this is all about ownership. And just to recap very quickly, advanced roadmap was used to make initial plan, avoid too many automations and too many configurations in Jira, use EasyBI for reporting because it is wonderful, because it works on its own data, and use structure for end-to-end traceability, and education is very important. So that is all I wanted to talk about in this session. I hope you enjoyed this session and you also learned something new today. Thank you very much. Bye bye.